Okay, guys, welcome back to day 4 of KTG, Kinetic Theory of Gases. And yeah, I'll just cover up the rest of the theory that is left from this topic. And along with that, if you have any doubts by the end of this session, please let me know the question numbers I will discuss from HCOM or any other book that we have. Please let me know about the doubts. Okay. Now, let's look at this. Let's look at where we left off yesterday. We've talked about the VRMS and all, right? So yeah, this is what we talked about yesterday. In the end, it's not just this. We talked about basically how VRMS is defined and how V most probable and V average. All these values. It is better to remember these formulas: root over 3RT by M. Most probable is root over 2RT by M, I guess. And this goes like root over 8RT by pi M. Derivation for these two are not in your standard or not in your syllabus because it involves a lot of mathematics. Okay, but there is something that we need to know about this distribution. Okay, this specific speeds. Okay, there is a distribution law. Distribution law. It is named after, I don't remember the names at all. Can somebody remember a name? uh, Dalton, not Dalton. Yeah, Maxwell's distribution law. I'm so bad at the names. Maxwell's distribution law. I'll talk about it. Like what exactly is this idea? The thing is, let us take a gas and a container in a chamber. Let's take a gas in a chamber. So there are different molecules randomly going. There is a theory about this thing called Brownian motion. It's just theory. You might want to read it if you want to. But when it comes to problems, I don't really think it affects that much. So I didn't really discuss that part. But it's just all the molecules are going in very random motions. We've already talked about it, right? Now, the thing is, they all have different speeds. Like if I have to track each and every molecule, it's practically impossible. Let's just say we track and these velocities are like 280 meter per second. I'm just randomly taking these values, okay? 280, 300, 260, 260, 270, 270, 265. Just random values. But if only I take all the molecules and I put them on a simple graph where this is speeds of the molecules, and on this graph the number of molecules per that speed. Okay, it's as if let us say I'm taking the speed of 270. So I need to write the number of molecules which have 270 speed. Okay, so I take another speed which is 280. I'll have to find the number of molecules which have the same speed, 280. So if only I make a distribution graph of this whole thing, you'll get a normal distribution which actually looks like this. Which means with this specific speed, let's just say this is called, let's call it as 240. You'll find these many number of molecules. Like the number, the scale is predefined. It comes from the scale. Okay, like there will be somewhere around some 2 moles of molecules about this thing, and there are different number of molecules at different speed. There's different number of molecules at different speed. So this graph is kind of telling us how the speeds in the gas, how the speeds of molecules in the gas are basically distributed throughout the entire gas. Now this whole thing is at a specific temperature. Let us just say at room temperature. I'm just randomly taking, like room temperature is what, 300 Kelvin around. So at this temperature, this is how the distribution looks. Like there will be a lot of molecules with different speeds, but if I only put them on a graph, this is how they look. Okay. Now the important point is this specific velocity, this specific speed with which maximum number of molecules are present. The number of molecules with this speed is actually the maximum, and so that is why this speed is called as the most probable speed. V most probable is this speed only. V most probable is this speed only. Sharath, yeah, you got disconnected anyway. This is the on the y-axis. It is a number of molecules. So like whenever I'm making a graph, I'm just repeating what I just said. We have different speeds: 240, 250, 260, 270, 280. So with this specific speed of 270, how many molecules are there? How many molecules are present? With this specific speed of 260, how many molecules are present? With this specific speed of this, how many molecules? So if I draw them all, I'll get a normal distribution curve, and this is how the curve looks like. Okay. So whenever we have this graph for a specific temperature like T1, obviously we have a distribution for T1. And like I said, this speed is the most probable speed. Okay, and this value was already something that we already calculated, which is root over 2 RT by, I mean, we didn't calculate it. There is a way to calculate it. There's a mathematical way to calculate this value, but we're not doing it right now. Okay, now, according to this law, it's a very important idea that whenever I increase the temperature, guys, can you hear any disturbance from the TV? If you can, please let me know. No, right? So it's fine. Thank you. So this dn by the number of molecules, I think it's dn by dv, I guess, the number of molecules per unit volume or something. And this thing is the speed. So I put it in a graph. I get a graph like this at a specific temperature T1. If only the temperature is increased, the graph actually moves like this. Obviously, most probable has increased now. Most probable at T1. Now this is most probable at T2. Let's call this graph, the whole graph as T2. If only I increase the temperature much further, it actually like this. Okay, let me draw it clearly. The first graph kind of goes like this at T1. As I'm increasing the temperature, shapes up like this. Further increment in temperature, it shapes up like this. So obviously, like the number of molecules with this most probable velocity will decrease, but this is the most probable at T3. This is the most probable at T2, and this is the most probable at T1. So as I increase the temperature, so this is also important that T3 is the highest, then T2, then T1. As the temperatures are increased, this is how the distribution moves, and this is a basic law. It's a distribution, Maxwell distribution law. Okay, this is a theory up to which you have in your textbook. It is not much further from this point. Okay, up to this point only it is present in your syllabus. So just try to understand that part. Aniket, yeah, what is it?
So why is it reducing?
It was an observation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sir.
it was an observation, and there's probably a reason for that, like why it is getting it's not reducing, it is getting distributed over a more number of molecules. That is the point.
Like flattening, sir.
At lesser, yes, yeah, at lesser temperature, the most probable occurs for a very high number of molecules. But as the temperature is increased, there will be more molecules with different same velocities. You're getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's just a distribution that is changing. It's not really decreasing.
Why is that happening, sir?
What do you mean? Why is that happening?
Like there should be some reason, right, sir, for that flattening?
I've never really come across a reason for that. I'm sorry, but I seriously think it was an observation. It's just an observation that I observed as we move on to higher temperature. Or is it mentioned in your textbook? I'm not really sure. You can see molecule. No, it's not mentioned there. It could possibly be explained with the same idea again, like the molecular forces and other stuff. So I think it is explained somewhere, but there must be some explanations by some people. But I've never really come across that explanation. I just really didn't question. I just took it as a observation. Okay, Aniket?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, like I mentioned, it's not really decreasing. It is just getting distributed over a wider area. Here in this point, this is the range where you find the most probable. But here, you're getting like this kind of a range with this. The range is clearly increasing. That is an important point here. So it's like more number of molecules have the same type of speeds now. That is the point. And now, once that is over, have the probable speeds. And of course, guys, you also need to understand, if you take a specific temperature at some random specific temperature, obviously this is most probable, v most probable, which is root over 2RT by m. And also this is more v average random at some other point, you'll get v average, which is root over 8RT by pi m. And somewhere around here lies vrms, root over 3RT by m. I mean, there's no reason why I'm showing these specific points. Okay, it's just we already know that this is greater than, I mean, this is greater than v most probable and vrms is greater than this. Like we mathematically know that. That is why I placed on the right side. That's all. Okay. Just a theoretical question you might face somewhere at a specific temperature. These are the velocity. This is how the velocities or the speeds look like on the graph. Okay. I just took it mathematically, since there is a 2 here and there is 2 point something and there is 3 here. I just put them mathematically on the graph just like that. All right. So yes, all this theory is important for theoretical questions and also mathematical, sometimes like problematic questions also. So just stay ahead of it. And then so come back to PV equals to nRT, the ideal gas equation. I mean, you can put it in different ways. You can put it in different ways, but it's up to us how we define it. Okay. Now, this is where I need to define something called a thermodynamic state. We will come across this thing in the next topic. What exactly is a state? What exactly is a state? So it is like you need to define a gas's situation. Like you take a gas in a container or open container or closed container, it doesn't matter. You need to be able to define all these quantities, P1, T1, V1, P1, V1, T1, and obviously number of moles are obviously self-defined if you already know P1, V1, T1. So these three quantities are basically defining the state of the gas. This is the amount of pressure it is at, this is the amount of volume, and this is the amount of temperature. So just have this kind of a state. Now thermodynamic, the word dynamic means, Aniket, what's your doubt?
So we can define any three of those four, right?
Yeah, in fact, yes, you can define any three of those four, it's fine. But people actually tend to talk about PVT. Those are the primary quantities.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so those are the quantities they tend to define all the time. So this actually defines a state. Now let us say it has changed to some other P2, V2, T2. Okay, so it clearly has changed to a different state now. It clearly has changed to a different state now, with different pressures and different volumes and different temperatures. The thing here is, guys, if only I have to put it on a graph, PV graph or VT graph. Guys, please remember there could be a PVT graph also. PV and temperature like as a third axis. People can draw this also. Okay, like, but it's a 3D graph. It is not possible to show a 3D graph in this class right now, right? So I'm just leaving that. I mean, I'll try to show it in the simulator or so yeah, in a 3D
So
simulator.
can we also add n in that?
You don't have a fourth dimension, right?
So you can have like a curvy graph, sir.
Yeah,
Like a 2D graph.
yeah, you can. But like, where do you add n? Already we have 3 dimensions, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. So there are 3D graphs. Just remind me about these things. I mean, like, first of all, you need to understand 2D graphs clearly first. Okay. So once you people do enough problems on that, I will be able to show you some 3D graphs also. Like, if I can find one, I'll show you one at the end of today's class itself. But let's just settle with 2D graph for now. So there is P1, V1 at random point, some random point P1, and the volume is V1, and some other point P2, and the volume is V2. So I know about the state 1 and the state 2. Guys, if only I have to draw a graph between 1 and 2, I need to know what has happened throughout the process. Like, how did it went to go from this to this? How, like, it can go at constant pressure first, and then constant volume, or it can go like this, or it can go like this. It can go in any random way to point to. As long as we don't know which process is it, we should not draw a graph. We only should be satisfied with point 1 and point 2. That is our graph. That's it. If only somebody gives you initial state, final state, and that is the information that is willing to give, you cannot draw a graph. You need to know whatever has happened at each and every point. And there is this word, we will come across this word in the next topic itself. They say the word is like, it's a quasi static process. We will come across this word in the next topic. Like the quasi static means we already know at every point, like we are the mean, like in between this transition, the gas was stable here also. The gas was stable here. It's basically at equilibrium at all these points. And so I was able to calculate all these things, P1, V1, P2, V2, P3, V3, P4, V4. I was able to calculate all these things. That is the reason why I'm able to draw the graph. Okay, that is the idea behind this point. So whenever you talk about any sudden process is in, we initially know at P1, V1, T1, and suddenly it is at P2, V2, T2. Like it all of it just happened suddenly. But yeah, it definitely took some path, but we don't know what it is. As long as you don't know what it is, all you can do is put 1, put 2 at different points, and that's all. We cannot draw this. We cannot what do you say, like draw this graph as long as it's a sudden process. Sumantraj is asking, quasi-static process is reversible. Yes, we will talk about all this thing. We might have heard about this thing in chemistry. It's a reversible process and all. This is not reversible because we don't know which path we followed in this thing. Okay, we will talk about these things, all these ideas in thermodynamics in the next topic, which is, but I just wanted to tell you about this thing, the idea of thermodynamic state itself, that where you need to know each and every state to draw a graph. Otherwise, we are not really doing it. Okay, if you don't know, we just need to put the initial and the final state itself. So the whole idea of P, V, T values are so important to define a state of a gas. And just for the sake of it, I also need to mention that if the gas is ideal, we write PV equals to nRT. But what if the gas is real? We don't really do anything with this real gas equation, but if only we have to consider intermolecular forces of attraction, size of molecules, collisions in between molecules and other stuff. You people might have come across this equation already, P minus A by V square. I don't remember this equation, V minus B nRT. I think this is the equation. I mean, these are the additional variables that we add A and B to make this equation much closer to real gas, but it still not is real. Reality is like very difficult to achieve in simple equations. So this is an equation, and there is a question in units and dimensions about this graph. Sorry, about this equation. If you can remember that, there in units and dimension topic, there was a question about this equation. I mean, try to find the dimensions of A and B. That was a question, very simple question. Anyway, so as long as the gas is considered ideal, we can always happily consider this equation, and there is not a single problem where they might give you a real gas and ask you to solve things. Okay, right. Now, so talking about a state of a gas, the state of a gas, can we talk about the state change as in solid to liquid and liquid to gas? We are only dealing with this part only. But did you people come across this Mazida, what is your doubt? Sorry, equation of real gas. What is your problem? Mazida, can you raise your hand and ask? Yeah, Mazida, what is it?
Sir, I think it must be P plus A by V square.
It is P plus.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't remember that equation clearly. I mean, like it's been a long time since I checked this. Anyway, if it is P plus, it is P plus, but we don't really come across these problems. It's really fine. Let's check it if we can find it. It is P plus. Yeah, thanks for reminding about that. So yeah, whenever we talk about the state changes, the gas to liquid to sorry, solid to liquid to gas, you might have come across these words in chemistry really good. Okay, compared to physics, you might have come across these things about evaporation, boiling. This is the evaporation process, and this is what liquefying process. Why does it turn from a solid to liquid, and why does it turn from a liquid to gas? It's always about the molecular forces. It's always about the intermolecular forces of attraction. Like as the forces are getting weaker and weaker, the solid tends to turn into liquid, and then turns to turn into a gas, right? So my idea, important point here is that if only we can put that in a PV graph, that the state change of a gas, solid to liquid, liquid to vapor, the state change, if only I have to put it on a graph, you might see this behavior that mm, should I just directly draw the graph? No, let me seriously explain it. Let us consider of a specific material which is in solid state right now in this region where the pressure is here but the volume is so low, but it is basically in solid state. As the temperature is increased or as the volume has increased, at some other point it is turning into a liquid. Okay, but this turning of solid to liquid doesn't happen at the same volumes for all the same points, because at high pressures it happens here, like the turning of solid to liquid, the border lies here. As the pressure is getting lower, the border moves like this. It's like the state change happens as you're moving to the lower pressure point. The state change happens at higher volume points. Okay, the state change. So that is like the border in between solid to liquid. And in fact, the liquid to gas graph, even the gas somewhere lies here because the volume is like really high for a gas because it expands, right? The border lies like this. But the best part is there comes a specific pressure where these two borders meet. Okay, beyond that point, there is only one line. And this is where the interesting part comes. At this kind of a pressure, at like some high pressure, material turns from solid to liquid and then liquid to gas. Turns from solid to liquid, liquid to gas, solid to liquid, liquid to gas. Happily happens, the whole thing is fine. You can actually get the same graph using a temperature also, but we will talk about it. But there comes a point, and beyond that specific point, it makes more sense if it is a temperature graph. Kada. Even PV graph also looks the same. PT graph also looks the same here. Let me check on that once. But beyond that point, the liquid directly turns from solid to gas directly. And that specific point that we have here is called as a triple point. You might have seen this thing. Acha, have you people seen the video of this triple point? I mean, like, a liquid at triple point. I'll try to show that to you. Aniket, what is it?
Sir, we learned the same graph in chemistry, but the graph was inverted, sir.
The graph is actually 3D. I want that is a problem here. There's supposed to be a 3D graph for PVT. It's not inverted. I'm sure about it. It's definitely not inverted. Maybe it's about the quantities that we take here. Let me just show that to you directly. Okay, instead of doing this, what do we search? Triple point 3D graph. Let's try that. Image They are really complicated to understand. If we have that in the simulator, it's a lot more easier, right? Let's try that. Triple point. Nope, it's not even there in this. Let's look at this graph. How do I show this to you? It would have been a lot more easier for you people. You didn't get this in chemistry? Oh, I'm sorry.
We had, sir, almost all these photos have inverted graphs on.
All these in photos are what?
Inverted graphs, sir. They are like
No, I'm
opposite of
trying.
what you drew.
No. Wait a second. I'm trying to make the sun where. VT projection is there. PV projection is also there. Acha, is that what you're trying to say? Aniket, but it is very difficult to understand in this thing. For me, it is taking time. I'm not sure if I can make sense to you people using this specific graph. Aniket, this is a graph that I'm talking about, pressure, temperature, solid, liquid, gas. You get this? I just mentioned, right? Like this is a solid to liquid, liquid to gas, solid to liquid, liquid to gas. As you decrease the pressure, okay, this is how you better understand it. Okay, like let's take a specific pressure. Okay, at that specific pressure, solid to liquid, this is like the melting point. The melting point occurs at this temperature. Liquid to gas, boiling point occurs at this temperature. But as I'm decreasing the pressure, the melting point is increasing, the boiling point is decreasing, the melting point and the boiling point. As I'm decreasing the pressure further, the melting point is again increased, the boiling point is decreased, and they finally meet at this specific point where the melting point and the boiling point combinedly be the same thing. And that specific point is called as triple point. So this is the pressure at triple point, and this is the temperature at triple point. I can even draw the PV graph, but it makes more sense in PT. I hope you get it. Aniket, what is it?
Sir, I think if temperature is on y-axis, then it will be like how we studied in chemistry.
Acha. You might have studied like it that way, like the temperature is on the y-axis and pressure on x-axis.
Yes, sir.
But you understand this, right? What I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so basically the melting point increases and the boiling point decreases, and at some point they meet. So this is the reason why, if only we have low pressure points, like wherever the pressure is like really low, you tend to see things melt really at high temperatures, but they boil at very low temperatures. They boil at low temperatures, but they melt at high temperatures. Okay. So as a pressure, for water especially, there are some fixed values for this thing. I don't remember the values, but pressure at a triple point and temperature at triple point for water are fixed values, and they are all standard values most of the time. Okay, they use these values as like a standard notations to express a lot of other things. So let me find a 3D graph if it is possible. Yeah, all these things, all these words are important. Like if you want to check it, let's look at all these words. Melting and freezing, you already know. This is evaporation, vaporization, and then condensation. Coming back to liquid is condensation, but beyond this triple point is called as sublimation and deposition. Like directly from solid to gas is sublimation, and back is called as deposition. Okay, just words that you need to understand. Okay, and the thing that I wanted to show is a 3D graph. 3D graph is a really interesting graph here. Let me directly find a video of sublimation if you want. Sublimation GIF. Yep. look at this, it actually directly gets converted into solid to gas directly. Yeah, look at this graph, look at this thing. At that specific, I mean, like, this is not water basically. For water, it doesn't happen at our atmospheric pressure. It happens at a very low pressure. This is something else. All these things are basically, there is a triple point for water also. Like, there is a image triple point of water GIF. Let's search for that. Which is the best one to check? Because at that triple point, basically what happens, all the three states basically occur at the same time at this triple point. If it is slightly, the pressure is slightly increased, it will be a liquid. If the temperature is slightly decreased, it will be solid. If the temperature is slightly increased, it is a gas. So at this situation, we tend to see all the three states of matter. We will look at a solid ice kind of a thing, and a liquid, and a gas also at a triple point. I'll try to find a good video on that. Okay. Is this a boiling water? Nope. Nope. There is this random chemical. I don't know what the name of the chemical is, but he clearly shows that, yeah, you see that it is becoming ice, and evaporation is not really visible here. It is getting into a freezing form immediately. Oh, sorry, it is not playing for you. I'm sorry. The screen is frozen. Yeah, let me share the screen again. Yeah, Aniket.
So is it compulsory that liquid one should be there for every material at some pressure?
Yes. There should be, the triple point must be there for every material.
It can't be like zero, sir.
What is zero? There is no zero in reality.
Sir, like at no pressure, there'll be a liquid for that material.
No. Look at this. I think it is, you can see at this thing, because there is bubbles forming, and there is ice forming, and there is liquid state also. I think you can consider it as a triple point here. But anyway, I mean, like, you can find a lot of videos on triple points. If you really want to, you can check it on YouTube and get back to it. Okay. So just a theoretical idea that we need to know about the triple point is just an introduction, because this triple point is a very good important reference point to us in our further coming points. Okay, other topics. But yeah, guys, I'll try to find the 3D graph for this triple point. If you can find the 3D graph, it makes a lot more sense. You can show PVT all at once. Okay, but it is just not visible. I mean, I'm not sure if you can understand it on this graph, but it is, yeah, for me, it is difficult to look at the graph. It is already hurting my brain to understand the graph. I mean, I'm not sure on which graph you put in pressure. On y-axis, there is pressure. On z-axis, there is temperature. And x-axis, there is volume, I guess. Yeah. But again, he didn't put the volume directly. He put a logarithm of pressure, logarithm of volume, and temperature. But so it's fine. If I can find another graph that makes a lot more sense to you people, yeah, this might make more sense to you. But no, even this can't. It's difficult for you people to understand these 3D graphs right now. Aniket. Yeah. Aniket, man, what happened?
No, sir, it was by mistake. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, so once you understand the idea of triple point, we need to talk about a new topic. I mean, it's not really a new topic. What exactly is happening in this process, this part of the process? Where is that process? Okay, wait. This evaporation point, like, why would liquid convert into gas, and what exactly is happening? We're not talking about boiling. I hope you know the difference between boiling and evaporation right away. Do you people know it or not? Boiling and evaporation. Do you people know or not? Please raise your hand and speak about it.
Yes, sir. Boiling happens to the whole liquid at once, and evaporation is like layer by layer.
What?
That's what we learned, sir.
Okay. But that is it. That is the thing that you learned, or is there another idea to it?
That's it, sir. Like
Okay.
evaporation is a natural process, boiling we do it.
Okay. Let's look at it in a very more practical way. Okay. Harshavardhan. No. Okay. Anyone else? Mazida, do you know what evaporation is? Please raise your hand and speak, Mazida. Evaporation and boiling, like how are they different?
So actually, boiling is a bulk process, and evaporation is a surface-based process.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah,
in
you are making
boiling,
sense, but okay, fine. Yeah, go ahead.
in boiling, we need to supply the energy so that the attractive forces can be broken.
And evaporation?
In evaporation, like due to more collisions of the particles, they escape, sir.
I don't
The
understand.
particles.
So she's saying it takes heat from the other particles, a part of it.
Okay. So let's not talk about heat and all. Okay, let's talk about it in a very common sense. Where the thing is, it's always about the state change. Okay, it's always about converting a liquid into a gas. That is a common thing in both. It's always about liquid into gas. So you're basically breaking the intermolecular force of attraction and freeing all the molecules. You're basically freeing all the molecules from one another. Now, to do that, to break this freeing of molecules, you can either simply boil a liquid. You take some liquid, you boil it using a burner or whatever. You're basically providing the energy. So the internal energy of the liquid increases. We already talked about it. All the molecules have these vibrations. So as the internal energy increases more and more because of this internal energy, because of these vibrations, the IMFA tend to break, and slowly molecules tend to escape from this liquid and escape into the room's atmosphere. Okay, that is the basic idea of boiling. That is a like core idea of boiling. Let's talk about evaporation. Evaporation is also the same thing, except we are not providing it any energy. So all the molecules which are there inside, they are at the same stage. You didn't increase any internal energy. All the molecules have some internal energy already, and you didn't increase anything. So it didn't really change. But the thing is, the molecules from air, they tend to, it's not just the molecule from the air, it's about the molecules on the surface of this liquid. They tend to gain the energy from these molecules. Whenever they come and collide with these molecules, whenever they tend to collide with these molecules, the molecules on the surface already have enough energy, but they are low on this IMFA. It is easy to break on the molecules which are on the surface. So these molecules automatically break and they evaporate. I mean, they simply convert into a gaseous form, and this is what we call it as evaporation. In both the things, in the both the situations, you're basically breaking the molecular forces only, except in boiling, you're providing this energy, basically increasing the internal energy of the entire liquid. So all the molecules, any of these molecules can break. So you can even see all the bubbles forming inside at the bottom of the container also. So there will be gas even at the bottom of the container. That is not going to happen in evaporation. In evaporation, it is just the surface, the molecules on the surface, which are simply escaping into the room atmosphere. Aniket.
So why are the below molecules cooled because of this evaporation?
Below molecules are not cool. Acha, they do get cold, but we will talk about it separately. Okay.
Okay,
We
sir.
need to talk about that in a different topic. Right now, let's just talk about this. Now, yes, is evaporation linked to this thing? Let's just talk completely practical. Like, if only I boil water, will there be evaporation? Will there be more evaporation? For sure, because yes, the surface molecules definitely are free to move, but if only I'm boiling it, they're more free to move. So the temperature of the liquid definitely supports evaporation. If the liquid is hot, the evaporation is easy. I'm not talking about boiling. Yeah, the boiling definitely happens if you reach the boiling point and all. I'm not talking about the boiling, okay? Just the evaporation itself. If the temperature of the liquid is good enough, these molecules, they tend to move out easily because it is easy to break them since they are already at high energy. Okay, and it's not just the temperature of the liquid, there is more. It can be the temperature of atmosphere also. Like the temperature of atmosphere itself can affect. If the temperature is high, there will be high energy molecules hitting the surface. So it is obviously easy to break all the molecules. So the evaporation is also more when the temperature of the atmosphere is also more. When the temperature of the atmosphere is more, there is more evaporation. When the temperature of liquid is more, there is more evaporation. Obviously, they tend to evaporate easily. And it's not just that, there is one more thing. It's the pressure of atmosphere. It actually affects in the opposite direction. If the pressure is more, if already there are enough molecules of liquid around, they tend to condensate back into liquid. So if the pressure is more, evaporation is less. This is another important point. Whenever there is a high pressure point, the evaporation is less. So especially in vacuum, let us say I put some liquid and there is vacuum in this liquid, you can expect high amount of evaporation. The evaporation is like really high. Whenever you have vacuum, the evaporation is really high. This is what we come across in this tube. What is this tube? Like the I'm forgetting simple names here. What was the tube? Barometer. Yes, I'm sorry.
Barometer, sir.
Yeah. What happened to
So I
my...
have one doubt.
Yeah.
So in pressure cookers, why do we keep the lids, sir, if evaporation is actually helping?
Yeah. Let me talk about it. So where was I? Yeah, there was vacuum in barometers, remember? So that is the reason why we tend to get some mercury vapors in this region. Okay, because the evaporation is easy whenever there is vacuum. Whenever there is pressure, evaporation gets difficult because liquid tends to condensate back into the this thing. And I can give you more examples, like I'm just giving you practical examples so that you understand more and more of it. Okay, you see this thing, right? Like whenever you have a cold water in a room, all the molecules, all the liquid molecules around this thing, they tend to condensate onto this thing because they come and collide. Since the energy is really low, internal energy is really low here, the evaporation is difficult. They tend to condensate back onto the surface of the glass. Even on here also, even here also there will be condensation for sure, but you cannot observe this, right? Since we only observe the top of the glass, I mean the glass surface only, we tend to see that. So that is the reason why, like when the internal energy is low, the liquid tends to condensate back onto the surface of the container. So this is another observation. And there is another observation, like let us say I have a liquid. This is open as in there is wind flow above it. There is a second case, it is open but no wind flow. And there is a third case, it is open but it is closed with a container. Can you people tell me where will be the evaporation the maximum and where it will be the minimum? Can somebody raise your hand and tell?
So maximum will be in that open wind flow because least pressure.
Yes, the pressure keeps, like whenever there is evaporation, the molecules getting replaced. So there will be maximum evaporation here. Here there will be evaporation, but for sure, but here it is least. The reason is,
Same molecules are there, sir.
So as you get evaporation, the pressure is increasing in the room. As you're getting more and more evaporation, the pressure itself is increasing. So the pressure itself will oppose the evaporation. You're getting my point? There will be evaporation in the beginning. So as it is evaporating, the pressure inside this closed container increases. So the very increased pressure will oppose the evaporation. So guys, whenever you see a container, whenever you see any medium, you see some evaporation. You see some evaporation that increases the pressure. So that very increased in pressure will bring back the condensation. So it will oppose. So in fact, there comes a point where this evaporation saturates. Yeah, it keeps on evaporating, but after some point, it keeps increasing the pressure. So the evaporation saturates. They call it as the saturated vapor pressure. At that point, the saturated vapor pressure. So you will not find more saturated vapor pressure in a container. I mean, like you cannot, yeah, it is more like an equilibrium. Yeah, Sharad, that is good.
Sir, in weather report, they gave this as humidity.
Yes. So that is a basic idea, like the rate of evaporation and the rate of condensation, the rate of condensation simply becomes equal at that point. The rate at which it is evaporating and the rate at which it is condensating will simply be equal. Okay, so that is the reason why you will get a equilibrium, and that pressure in the air at that point is called as a saturated vapor pressure. You can connect into this into a lot of practical examples, like in summer there is obviously way more vapor pressure, especially in cities like Vizag, where there is a beach, there is a lot of water right next to it, so all the air is clearly saturated, so you will be having this high amount of saturated SVP. They call it as SVP, saturated vapor pressure. In Hyderabad there is a problem. Why? Even though the temperatures are high, there is no water to evaporate in Hyderabad, so there won't be evaporation, there won't be this SVP that much. So this is the reason why in Vizag in summers it is like way too sweaty. In Hyderabad there is no sweat at all, it's like completely dry. Okay, so I can give you more examples, like drying of clothes. Drying of clothes, like you take a wire and you wash some clothes and you dry them on your wall. Let's say you did it indoors. You did it indoor. Okay, so it is difficult to evaporate. The evaporation isn't much because it will eventually reach that SVP. I'm sorry. It will eventually reach this SVP, and there won't be much of evaporation if it is indoors. So it is always good to have these clothes evaporated outdoors. And do you also know the evaporation is actually good in an air conditioned room? In an AC room, the whole room is basically dry. The air is very, very dry. That is what ACs do. They take the whole room's vapor pressure. All the vapors in the room, the ACs completely take it. So they make the rooms very dry. So even in this case also, evaporation is like good amount. Okay. Outdoor it is good, but indoors it is not that good. The evaporation is a little low indoors. Okay. Now, so coming to a point, this evaporation itself, I hope I've given you enough examples. Aniket, we will talk about it separately, okay? I mean, I get your question that lid on a pressure cooker is placed. So because of that lid in a pressure cooker, it is actually increasing the temperature to a very high amount. Like because of the pressure, it is increasing the temperature very high. And you're basically not letting the liquid vaporize. That is a point. Even at high temperatures, you're basically making the liquid stay as a liquid. And the liquid is boiled. Since the liquid is very at high temperature, it is boiled, it will cook the rice properly. That is a point. Okay, I hope you're getting it. If you don't get it, we'll talk about it separately. So taking this SVP, why do I keep saying VSP? Taking this SVP, the saturated vapor pressure, taking this saturated vapor pressure, they define the humidity in a room or in a place or in a city, or relative humidity, strictly speaking. Relative humidity. They basically take the saturated vapor pressure into the instantaneous, at that instant vapor pressure, like the maximum vapor pressure that it can reach to the instantaneous vapor pressure. That is why you will often find this relative humidity as percentages, like they multiply it to 100 and give 60% humidity, 70% humidity, 20% humidity. Let's check the humidity in Hyderabad and Vizag today, just for fun. Humidity in Hyderabad. I'm not sure if it is more. You must be sweating really bad. They didn't give the humidity. Where is the humidity? Yeah, it is given here. Humidity is 33% in Hyderabad right now. Let us check the same thing in Vizag. Vishakhapatnam, yes. It is 41%, or it is 50%. No, no, no. It is 70% someday. Oh, wait a second. Check this, guys. On some Tuesday, it's today only. In the evening, it reaches to 70-80%. Okay, so it is almost impossible to live in Vizag at that humidity levels. It's like 80% humidity is like very high. Okay. Who is asking what exactly is it meaning? Sharath, I just told you, it is a relative humidity. It's the maximum saturated vapor pressure that you can get, and the vapor pressure at that instant. Okay. So, like when they say 80% humidity, it's basically reaching 80% of its maximum limit. Okay, like the relative humidity is, there is a vapor saturated pressure, there is a saturated limit, there will be an saturated SVP for Vizag. After that, it reached 80%. The vapor pressure will be reaching 80% already. So it is a very bad situation. Like there will be a lot of humidity and there will be a
You
lot
need
of
to drink water, right, sir? If you
what?
have that much. You don't need to drink water then if you
Yeah,
have so
yeah,
much.
yeah. It actually is true. If there is that much of humidity, you don't really need to drink water, because there won't be much of evaporation from your skin also. Do you people know that a lot of water that we lose is basically through our skin? Our skin pores, they simply evaporate. So in Hyderabad, it is really important that you see that it almost drops to 20 also. So it is really important that you drink a lot of water in Hyderabad. But when it comes to Vizag, you don't really need. I mean, like there won't be that much of escape of water from our bodies. Okay, in summer you have to check this thing. The relative humidity drops way low in Hyderabad and it goes way high in Vizag. Okay, so in summer it is more important that you drink a lot of water in Hyderabad, but it doesn't really matter in Vizag. Okay, there will be, I mean, like there will be a lot of sweat on your body, constant sweat on your bodies in Vizag. In Vijayawada, let's check Vijayawada. It's even worse, I guess, in Vijayawada. No, it's not that bad. Achha, it's not. Oh, in Vijayawada it goes all the way to 98. It's even worse. Oh, 100 also. Nice, nice. So Vijayawada is also a bad place to live right now. Okay. Yeah, Niket.
So it's just 19 degrees Celsius where it was 100%. That's too less, right, sir?
Yeah, but there is more liquid. There is more liquid present. Like the amount of water that is present around that area is more. So even at that 19 temperature, the
Sir.
humidity is high. It's that point. Okay. It's not just that
Okay, sir.
at that instant. Okay. It's about the whole day's temperature. It's about the wind that is flowing. If there are heavy winds, the humidity is less. If there is no wind at all, I hope you get it, Aniket, now. So, yep, that is the idea. I think we are almost done with the theory, guys, but I suggest you to go through this theory of your textbook or your IP, I mean, like NCRT textbook. Go through this theory once, just go through all the words. You need to know all the wordings, relative humidity, and just go through the theory if it is interesting for you people. Okay. So that's it for today, but tomorrow you need to bring me more doubts and we will have to talk about all these doubts tomorrow. All right. I think the time is already running out. I'll stop the session for today. And if you have more doubts and more questions, especially, I need you to ask more questions tomorrow. So please ask me tomorrow and we'll come back to this class tomorrow. All right. Thanks so much and bye bye.